He owned more gold than any human being who has ever lived. Kings bowed to him. Nations sent him gifts just to stand near his wisdom. And then, near the end of his life, this same man picked up a pen and wrote one of the saddest sentences ever recorded. Meaningless. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. That wasn't a broken beggar talking. That was the verdict of the wisest, wealthiest king who ever lived, looking back on everything he had built. This was King Solomon. And around 25 tons of gold flowed into his kingdom every single year. Palaces. Fame. Gardens most of us couldn't even imagine. A wisdom the whole world traveled miles just to hear. And yet, the richest man alive looked at all of it, and called it chasing after the wind. Something you can run toward your whole life and never actually hold. Tonight, I want to walk you through what Solomon truly regretted. Because his regret isn't just ancient history. It's a warning God left inside the Bible for you and me, living right now. In the next few minutes, we'll look at 3 things Solomon got completely right about wealth, and the one quiet thing that broke his heart at the very end. And stay with me until that last one, because it's the exact regret most of us are repeating today, without ever noticing it. But first, let's be honest about how rich this man really was. Because we throw the word rich around far too easily these days. The Bible tells us 666 talents of gold came to Solomon in a single year. Scholars estimate that's somewhere around 25 tons of gold. Not in a lifetime. Every year. His drinking cups were solid gold. And silver? Scripture says silver was considered almost worthless in his days. Imagine being so wealthy that real silver wasn't even worth counting. Kings and queens traveled across the known world just to see it with their own eyes. The Queen of Sheba took one long look at his kingdom and said the half of it had never even been told to her. And he wasn't just wealthy. He was famous for a wisdom no one on earth could match. People brought him impossible problems, and he untangled them in minutes. From the outside, he had absolutely everything figured out. And here's the part we so easily forget. God gave him this. Solomon didn't chase it first. As a young king, he asked God for wisdom to lead his people well. And God added the wealth on top of it. So let's settle something right here. Early. This is not a story about money being evil. Solomon's own life proves you can love God and still be blessed with more than enough. The wealth itself was never the problem. But if wealth really was the answer to everything, then why did the wisest, richest man who ever lived end his days sounding so tired, so hollow, so empty? That is where the story quietly turns. Somewhere along the way, the wisest man alive started chasing more. Not because he needed it. He was already drowning in gold. But simply because he could. He wrote it down himself. In his own words. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. Houses. Vineyards. Sprawling gardens. The treasure of entire kingdoms. He tried everything a human heart could possibly want. Every pleasure. every project, every achievement the world could offer. And he did it all searching for one single thing. Something that would finally feel like enough. And then he wrote the single line that should stop every one of us cold. Whoever loves money never has enough. Sit with that for a moment. The richest man in human history is looking you in the eye and telling you plainly, more will never, ever be enough. And he didn't learn it from a book. He learned it the hard way. The more he gathered, the emptier he felt. Even his nights lost their peace. He confessed that even in the dark, his heart simply could not rest. Sound familiar? Sometimes, the bigger the pile, the lighter the sleep. Picture that for a second. A man who could buy literally anything, lying awake in a golden room, staring at the ceiling, feeling completely alone. All that gold. And it couldn't buy him one honest night of rest. And slowly, so slowly, he probably didn't even feel it. His heart began to drift. The Bible tells us that over the years, his heart was gradually turned away from the God who had given him everything. It didn't happen in a single day. It never does. It happens one small compromise at a time. One more deal. One more thing we quietly tell ourselves we've earned, we deserve. Until the very thing we owned slowly begins to own us. That's the danger money hides so well. It rarely walks in the front door announcing itself as an idol. It simply moves, quietly, to the center of your life. While you're busy managing it, protecting it, and worrying about it. And we do the exact same thing. We tell ourselves, once I hit this number, then I'll relax. Once the mortgage is gone, then I'll finally breathe. But the finish line keeps quietly moving, just like it did for him. And that brings us to his deepest regret of all. The one that seemed to haunt him the most. And here's what's so surprising. It wasn't about anything he gained. It was about everything he would have to leave behind. Listen to his own aching words. I hated all my toil, because I must leave it to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise? Or a fool? Think about the weight sitting behind that sentence. He built an empire with his own hands. And then he realized he could not control who would inherit it, or whether they would treasure it or waste every last bit of it. All that gold, all that wisdom. And this brilliant man could not guarantee that a single ounce of it would be handled wisely once he was gone. That's the thought that stole his sleep. And history, sadly, gave him a brutal answer. His son Rehoboam took the throne, listened to foolish, arrogant advice, and almost overnight, the kingdom his father spent a lifetime building split violently in two. The wealth of a lifetime, divided in a single generation. Solomon's greatest fear came true, word for word. And the heartbreaking part? He had already written about it, years before it ever happened. Can you imagine writing down your worst fear, and then living just long enough to watch it come true? That was Solomon. So what do we do with all of this? Do we just close the book feeling hopeless? No. Because here is the beautiful part. Solomon does not leave us in despair. At the very end of everything, he gives us his final conclusion. After all the gold, all the pleasure, all the searching, this is what the wisest man finally landed on. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. In other words, the money was never really the point. It never had been. The legacy that actually lasts isn't the size of your bank account or the house you leave behind. It's the faith you hand down. It's the wisdom you pass on. That is the one inheritance no foolish heir, no market crash, no bad decision can ever waste or take away. Think about the people you most admire in your own life. I guess it's not the ones who left. So here's a small step for tonight. Before you plan what you'll leave your children, ask what you're teaching them. Money without wisdom is just a heavier test for the next generation. Second, name the more you keep chasing. Write down the one thing you tell yourself will finally be enough. Then ask honestly, has it ever been? Third, put God back at the center of your money. Not the leftovers, the center. Solomon's peace didn't come from having more. It came from remembering who it all belonged to. Because the goal was never quiet riches for their own sake. The goal is a quiet heart. The kind of peace that money simply cannot buy. So let's bring it home. Solomon had the gold, the fame, the wisdom, and still called it chasing the wind. His regret wasn't that he had money. It was that he almost let money have him, and nearly lost the legacy that mattered most. And that's the regret so many of us are quietly repeating. Chasing a little bit more, and calling it a plan. So tonight, do just one thing. Open to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Read it slowly, and ask God to show you where enough really is for you. And if this spoke to you, tell me in the comments, what does enough look like for you? I read every single one. Not hype. Not superstition. Just quiet, wise, God-honoring wealth, and the peace that comes with it. I'll see you in the next story.